Go down the gamut of all the tyrannical things that Matt Bevin has done. He went ahead and got rid of the U of L board of directors unilaterally. He also cut Planned Parenthood funding in Louisville. He relowered minimum wage to state workers. He reversed an order to allow ex-felons the right to vote. These are all by executive order. By executive order, meaning tyrannical. He's also dismantling Connect as we speak, which is literal death panels. He is choosing which people in Kentucky get to live and which one get to die. And this comes after, essentially, as for the Medicaid expansion, the federal government pays the entire tab, and they'll continue to do so until 2017. After next year, 2017, Kentucky will pay 2% of the cost of the expansion, and then that will increase yearly until the state eventually pays 10% by 2021. This costs Kentucky's taxpayers zilch, hardly anything, 10% by 2021, 2% by next year. We can afford this. And so the idea is that the amount of money that has been saved and the jobs that have been created will more than offset the little bit, the 2% cost. So he is literally creating death panels, not just those fake death panels like Sarah Palin was talking about with Obamacare, but literal death panels. They're going to set up panels to decide who gets to have Connect, who gets to have Obamacare, and who does not get to have universal health care. So whereas there's some overlap when it comes to Donald Trump and Matt Bevin, there's some notable differences. First of all, Donald Trump says that we deserve universal health care, that the Iraq war was bad, and a whole host of actually liberal. He thinks that we should have family leave, child care, and some other things, other liberal things. So Matt Bevin, he's a New Hampshire carpetbagger, Denver, Colorado scallywag. He's an anti-union tyrannical dictator governor of Kentucky, Matthew Griswold Bevin. Essentially the Donald Trump of Kentucky, the hedge fund pro-cockfighting manager himself. And he was quoted as saying that violence is necessary. If Hillary Clinton was elected, he wants to fight ideologically, morally, but if Hillary Clinton is elected, then perhaps we're going to have to fight physically. Why? Because we're fighting for the United States of America. That's how he couched it. Later on, he would say that he was talking about Islamic terrorism, but that isn't what he was talking about. He was talking about the culture wars. He was talking about the Republican Party. If Hillary Clinton is elected, that spells the end of the Republican Party, and he's absolutely right about that. He also is speaking at the Family Research Council Action. So when he was talking about the blood of patriots and tyrants, meaning that there's going to be a civil war if Hillary Clinton was elected, I mean, he's willing to sacrifice his own children, like Isaac and Abraham. God says, hey, Abraham, do you really believe in me? Well, then kill your own son. Go ahead and kill your own son. And what a dutiful Christian. That's what Matt Bevin is doing with his own slaves, children, for Bill O'Reilly's culture wars. And Bill O'Reilly, this is the same guy that masturbates with a big black dildo, with a big black vibrator. So, that's the captain of the culture wars, the guy who lied about fighting in the Falkland Wars, these stupid, backwards, religious, extremist, right-wing, anti-gay, bigoted Christian Sharia laws. Matt Bevin is essentially part of the American Taliban. And who was at this Family Research Council? It'd say who's who, the lunatic fringe. You had Louis Gohmert, John Voight, Rick Santorum, Oliver North, who was famous for the Iran-Contra scandal when Ronald Reagan gave Iran weapons, guns, even though we had an arms embargo against Iran, in order to secure the release of a few U.S. hostages and to fund the death squad Contras in Nicaragua. The Contras, who are right-wing death squads fighting against the Democratic Socialist Sandinistas. And that, too, under the Boland Amendment, the funding of the Contras by the U.S. was prohibited by Congress, but that didn't stop Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, who called bin Laden a freedom fighter. Ronald Reagan, the same guy who said Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. He gave weapons to Iran, and in order to get that money, he used that money to fund the Contras in Nicaragua, the Iran-Contra scandal, Oliver North. You had Kirk Cameron was there, a.k.a. Mike Seaver, Duck Dynasty Phil Robertson, and he equated homosexuality to bestiality. And here's a quote. He says, neither the sexually immoral, nor the idolaters, nor adulterers, nor male prostitutes, nor homosexual offenders, nor thieves, nor greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. If you look at that list, he forgot the violent thugs. He forgot domestic violence. He forgot child abuse. He forgot assault and batterer. And what about rapist? What about the murderers? Phil Robertson didn't say anything about the murderers. In fact, he's very much obsessed with gay sex. He said no homosexual offenders, no male prostitutes, nor adulterers, nor the sexually immoral. He is obsessed with gay sex. So then you had Michelle Bachmann. She was there. She reminds me of that Christy Sheets woman, the Texas mother who killed her own daughters. Look at her eyes. Christy Sheets' eyes looks all spacey, like she's not actually there. She's aloof and spacey, like a raging psychopath. Very similar to another blue-eyed devil, Hillary Clinton. Just look at their eyes. Christy Sheets murdered her own daughters. You could just look at her and know that she's a psycho. The FRC Action is a 501c4 super PAC of the Family Research Council, and the Family Research Council has been classified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as an anti-gay hate group. Donald Trump was there too, which is odd, because Donald Trump is actually pro-gay marriage. He is pro for the LGBTQ community. And the FRC is ultra-conservative on many social policies. They hate gay people, the transgender. They oppose and lobby against LGBTQ rights, such as same-sex marriage and adoption. Stupid. They hate any woman who gets an abortion or even a divorce. So stupid. The Family Research Council is against embryonic stem cell research and pornography. The Family Research Council is opposed to getting a vaccine, a HPV, the human papillomavirus vaccine for students. That's stupid. They want their own daughters and sons to get HPV. It's an STD virus that can cause cervical cancer. The FRC supports a federal religious freedom clause which would allow medical workers to refuse to provide abortion services or birth control or even blood transfusions. This is so stupid. The FRC advocates for abstinence-only sex education. That's not even feasible. Prayer in public schools. Stupid. Intelligent design. They want intelligent design taught in the schools. Stupid. They are against the expansion of civil rights laws to include sexual orientation and gender identity as a legal basis for discrimination. They want to be able to discriminate against gay people. They want to, they're bigots. They want to discriminate. The Family Research Council supports the requirement of a 1-year waiting period before a married couple with children can legally get a divorce. So when it comes to man and woman being married, they want them to force them to stay in the marriage, no matter what. But when it comes to gay folks, they cannot get married at all. The Family Research Council also supports permanently eliminating estate taxes, which are the wealthy. The wealthy mostly pay the estate taxes. They are against marriage and civil unions. For gay folks, they're against all kinds of gambling. They question global warming, and they're opposed to any evangelical people who affirm their belief in global warming. In spite of 97% of scientists saying that humans do contribute to the rapid rising of the warming of the planet. There's a couple secular folks, such as Tony Blair, that thinks that there's a redeeming aspect to religion. I don't agree. I'm not Hitler, so we have a freedom to worship how you want to worship. You can be stupid if you want to. You want to paint your face orange? You want to hop around on one foot? Do it. You're an American. Be free. But I don't know why anybody would want to be stupid. I don't see the redemption of religion. I believe in Chris Hitchens. His perspective on this, on religion. Essentially, religion is a harmful vice. There's no redemption to it. If you just look at what religion has done, the Ku Klux Klan was Christian, Hitler was Christian, Christopher Columbus was Christian, the Russian czars were Christian, and 9/11, the 9/11 terrorists, does the religious freedom, does it protect the 9/11 terrorists? They were doing it for God. They were doing it for their religion. Is it okay for terrorism to be protected? The KKK were the first terrorists of this nation. The Confederacy were terrorists. So, you want to sit there and say that religious freedom, that you can go ahead. I don't think religious freedom should be used for anything. We're talking about human rights. So don't murder, don't kill, don't steal, don't rape, don't hurt others. And when you hurt others, then the book should be thrown at you. But that is not what the theocratic America wants. The American Taliban, look at what the pictures. The 30-year-old Kin Park Thing, her kid, she's from Myanmar, which was formerly called Burma. And there's Buddhists and Muslims there, but Kin Park Thing is a Christian, and she beat the crap out of her 7-year-old son, had 36 bruises and reprehensible welts, and she said that she was worried about her son's salvation with God after he dies. She lives in Mike Pence's Indiana. Beat the crap out of him with a coat hanger, a plastic one, I believe, not a wire coat hanger. Either way, the welts. Take a look at the pictures. It's horrible what she had done, but she's going to be defended behind religious freedom. The spare the rod, spoil the child. Just like what Matt Bevin had said, where he was offering his own kids to fight this, the blood of patriots and tyrants. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, he's willing to sacrifice his own children. And so this is just ridiculous. You know, this is, freedom is a necessary precondition for life. So the oppressors who seek to enslave others, freedom will always be an obstacle for them to overcome for themselves as well as their oppressed victims. They don't respect freedom. They don't look up to freedom. And when I listen to him, he's not just talking about Hillary Clinton being elected. I think it's the demise of the Republican Party and the culture wars. Donald Trump, you're going to lose the culture wars with Donald Trump. He is for gay marriage. He is for universal health care. He is against the Iraq war. He seems to be more of an isolationist, but I don't trust anything he says. He talks out of both ends of his mouth. But he's saying more liberal things than I've ever heard any Republican ever say. So when it comes to, you know, Matt Bevin saying all his nonsense that he said when he went to, you know, he's the tyrant. He is the tyrant. I was impressed that he knew that Martin Niemöller quote where he says, first they came for the socialists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist, and they came for the trade unionists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist, and then they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew, and then they came for me, and there was nobody left that was to speak for me. And he was actually pro-Nazis, this Martin Niemöller, a white Protestant preacher. But it's amazing that Matt Bevin would actually quote that because he's going after the socialists. He ran on the issue of right to work. He was totally against unions. And instead of going for the Jews, he chooses a different Abrahamic faith. He is going after the Muslims. So there's some scapegoat. There's always some scapegoat. He's got the religious scapegoats, he's got the socialist scapegoats, and he's got the trade unionist scapegoats. He's an unmitigated fascist through and through. Just look at the public media. The public media, the Joe Gerth couldn't fawn over Matt Bevin anymore. And that was his favorite reporter. Yeah, like they're actually going to report, you know, something that he might actually, they're not going to report anything that you need to know. Southern Baptist, American Taliban, Muslim Brotherhood, they're all one and the same. That's why I think atheists have to stand up, because if you don't want a theocracy, if you don't want the Muslims coming in here and putting Sharia law on us, then I don't see why the Christians should do the same thing. I don't think that religious freedom should actually justify any kind of crime. It's human rights or else. You want to go over there and you want to worship Buddha and you want to go do some weird snake, you know, snake whatever, worshiping crap. You want to go ahead and do that? You want to, you know, talk to snakes? That's your way of worshiping. Do it over there. But you can't get into the actual, you know, government. You can't tell everybody to worship the same way that you're worshiping. You can't get prayer and God in schools unless you want Allah and, you know, Muslim prayer and Buddhist prayer and all the other Hindu prayers in school. So this isn't the only time that Mr. Shock Therapy, Matt Bevin, has done this, but his economic proposals are going to shock Kentucky. So the problems that Kentucky have, poverty, mental health, the missing teeth, all these problems are going to be exacerbated. The lack of civil society, the lack of solidarity, the lack of unions, the lack of democracy. These are all going to go down, and they're going to be exacerbated with shock therapy, shock doctrine. Look at Naomi Klein's shock doctrine. That's what's going on right now. So he's going to say there's a civil war if Hillary Clinton wins. But he also is saying that the Republican Party is going down and that his culture of wars is going down. That's what he's essentially saying. But Bill O'Reilly was the one that, you know, masturbates to a vibrator, that's pretty gay, right? I don't have a vibrator. I'm in favor of gay marriage and gay people doing their thing. But Bill O'Reilly's been talking against it. He's got a vibrator. And, you know, that's the champion. That's Mr. Culture Warrior himself. So he's a teabagger. And I don't even know how Republicans have monopolized Christianity. I'm an atheist. Yeah, I don't believe in it, but Jesus Christ cared about the poor. He wanted everybody to be fed. He hung out with the prostitutes and the lepers and the tax collectors, any of the marginalized. If anybody was hated, he was their friend. That's not what Republicans do. Republican Christianity is to shun people. So he's got all the signs of the tyrant. He says, you know, all the things I said, defunded the Planned Parenthood in Louisville, shut the U of L board down, cut the state workers' minimum wage. He cut it down. And then the ex-felons don't have a right to vote anymore. But he's also intimidating Democrats. He's intimidating Democrats. One of the state legislators had he brought him in and said, "Why don't you become a Republican so he can get a Republican majority and get whatever he wanted, pushed down Kentucky's throat." And when that Democrat wouldn't switch over to Republican, he cut road projects, and it was a breach of contract that wound up costing Kentucky $650,000, over $500,000, because he's a tyrant. He is a tyrant. He is the head of the state. He is the chief executive. You can't get any more tyrannical than Matt Bevin. He is the monarch. He is the dictator of Kentucky. If there's a king of Kentucky, he is the king. So it's remarkable that he would do that Martin, Niemöller quote, which, he basically fails on all three planks. It's remarkable that he would say that the blood of tyrants and patriots is what is necessary when he himself is a tyrant. It's remarkable how, they are going to say anything and everything, and I'm just hoping that the rhetoric is just getting too intense. You had that Chuck guy, Chuck Norris. He said 1,000 years of darkness would happen if Obama got reelected. Well, it's been 4 years later. Have we had 1,000 years of darkness? No, we have not. So Matt Bevin's against unions, just like Trump is, just like Hitler was. He's also a closet case homosexual. Just because you're pretending to hate another group of people, I'm not fooled. I know that he is so gay, he's bursting at the seams. Matt Bevin is the gayest person I've ever met. So these are deplorables. Mike Pence wouldn't call David Duke deplorable because he doesn't want a name call, but he's a white supremacist, Mike Pence. These are baskets of deplorables, so she's absolutely right. When Trump suggested Second Amendment remedies if Hillary wins the presidency, this is sickening. Xenophobic, religious bigots, and they're racist and sexist, and, if she picks her judges, nothing you can do, folks, although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. So he's insinuating that violence should happen. They are right there on the threshold of saying, let's just go ahead and use violence. They're going to try to intimidate people at the polls. This is what Hitler did. But even though there was intimidation at the polls, Hitler didn't get a majority. He had to use other extra-legal means, the burning of the Reichstag, and then eventually, cut all the communists out. So I think this is a teachable moment to learn what Shays' Rebellion is about. Shays' Rebellion was about a tyrannical government that was stealing homes and stealing houses, and this is what is coming to Kentucky. So Shays' Rebellion eventually leads to the U.S. Constitutional Convention, and the Constitutional Convention only was to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority of the poor, so to protect the rich against the poor. So he wants to talk about bloodshed, and he wants to talk about war. Well, let's actually look at the quote. The quote comes directly from the Revolutionary War veterans who were losing their homes and losing their land and crops because of the war bondholders, because of the wealthy, the 1%. So they stood up against the 1%. They were wolf-packed. They got to the county conventions, and they surrounded all the courts, and they said, you're not going to auction my land. You're not going to steal my homes. And they all did it together. About 1,500 to 4,000 people stood up and fought for each other. They stopped foreclosures on homes. They stopped the courts from indicting their friends. They stood up, which is exactly how Massachusetts had beat the British in 1774. And they did this again in Shays' Rebellion. Shays' Rebellion eventually would be a complete loss, but the U.S. Constitution, you should know that the entire U.S. Constitution was written against you and me. They were against the poor people. They were against agrarian laws. They did not want the masses of the poor people to stand up and to claim any of the part of America that they had actually fought for. That's what Henry Knox says. They fought for this land, and now they think that a piece of it should go to them. They think that they're owed, and they were owed. But Henry Knox, he was against it because he was for the war bond owners and for the 1% and the wealthy businessmen and the merchants. And so the way that they beat him was they hired a mercenary army, they signed the Constitution, they legalized slavery, they legalized stealing Native American land, and they protected the wealthy. That's the reason why we have the Electoral College. That's the reason why we have the Senate. None of these people were popularly elected. Eventually you would elect the electors, and then the electors would vote for them, and then we didn't even vote for the president. The senators in the House would vote for the president. Today we have the Electoral College because we, the masses, are too stupid, so we got to refine that stupid opinion and pick one of the aristocrats. That's the reason why our system is the way it is. That's the reason why there's a lot of people that's in poverty. That's why the system hasn't helped a vast majority of Kentuckians. 1 million poor people in this state, and it's going to get worse. So he's a hedge fund manager. He is foisting the shock doctrine therapy upon the dumb and backwards poor hillbillies of Kentucky, KKK Kentucky, and because of their hatred of gay people and the hatred of blacks, they're going to get screwed over themselves. He also promised to get rid of the Jefferson Davis statue in the rotunda of Kentucky's capital. He hasn't done that because the Confederates, the Neo-Confederates, are his base. Of course he's not going to do that. He's cutting education. He's instituting literal death panels by dismantling Obamacare, the universal health care that we got that the federal government is paying for. He's Mr. Austerity, Mr. Shock Doctrine, and he's going to mess up Kentucky really, really bad. So he is the tyrant. So it's remarkable that he would even say these things. When you listen to the thing, he was just kind of speaking out of both. He's just saying whatever he needed to say to get the claps and the cheers. But yeah, those are my thoughts with what my governor had said last week at that Family Action Research panel. So I thought it was stupid, I thought it was ridiculous, and I think it's very dangerous, the rhetoric that he is using. And he also is misquoting Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson quote is about the poor people standing up against the rich. It's not about a bunch of elitists who just hate gay people and want to fight against anybody that wants to go against their hatred of gays. No, it's not to defend the bigots. It was very much to defend the oppressed from the oppressors.